By the late 1980s, Ferrari F40 was shocking the world with its brutality. Porsche 959 was redefining technology, and McLaren was only beginning to prepare the revolution that would become the F1. But in Japan, another machine was being born, something potentially even more outrageous. Its name was the Jiotto Caspita, and according to its creators, it was meant to become a true Formula One car for the road. This was not just another marketing slogan. The Caspita genuinely used Formula One-derived engines, featured an ultra-lightweight carbon fiber and aluminum structure, active aerodynamics, racing-style pushrod suspension, and performance figures capable of rivaling the greatest supercars on Earth. Perhaps the most unbelievable part of the story is that the project did not come from Ferrari, Lamborghini, or McLaren. Instead, it was created through the partnership of the Japanese racing company Dome and Wacol, a manufacturer best known for women's lingerie. It sounds absurd, but this bizarre combination of motorsport obsession, Japan's economic bubble, and a dream of creating the ultimate supercar gave birth to one of the most fascinating machines never to enter production. Today, the Caspita is almost mythical. Only 2 examples were ever built, each technically different from the other, and their story is filled with ambitious plans, financial struggles, Formula One engines, and a vision that was decades ahead of its time. The story of the Caspita begins in Japan during the second half of the 1980s, at the peak of the country's economic boom. Japan was convinced it could dominate every industry imaginable: electronics, luxury goods, motorsport, and automotive engineering. Companies had enormous amounts of money, and their ambitions were just as massive as their budgets. Yoshikata Tsukamoto, president of Wacol, Japan's largest lingerie manufacturer, wanted to create a new luxury brand with global prestige. Instead of launching another fashion product, he decided to create a supercar. His partner in the project became Minoru Hayashi, founder and president of Dome, one of Japan's most respected racing car manufacturers. Dome already had experience building Group C and Le Mans prototypes, and had previously developed the legendary Dome Zero concept. Together, both sides formed the WASCAP project, short for Wacol Sports Car Project. The idea was simple, yet completely insane. Create a Japanese supercar superior to Ferrari and Lamborghini, while also being more technologically advanced than anything else available at the time. The car was meant to look like a road-legal Group C racing prototype and use genuine Formula One technology. At a time when most manufacturers merely advertised their cars as inspired by Formula One, Dome wanted to build an actual race car with license plates. To design the car, the team hired Kunihisa Ito, an extremely talented stylist who had previously worked for General Motors, Ford, Mazda, and Nissan. Ito became the lead designer of the newly created Jiotto Design Incorporated, the studio responsible for the appearance and overall character of the car. The name Jiotto was intended to become a new luxury brand, while Caspita came from the Italian language and roughly translates as an exclamation of amazement or surprise, something like wow or good heavens. It was a deliberate nod toward Italian supercar culture. The designers created more than 200 body sketches before narrowing the selection down to 3 promising concepts. These were then tested in the wind tunnel at JARI, the Japan Automobile Research Institute. Ultimately, the team selected the more aggressive proposal inspired by Group C prototypes. The car featured an integrated rear wing, huge side air intakes, a very low nose, and an extremely wide stance. Interestingly, Dome engineers intentionally rejected a more elegant design, arguing that beautiful styling alone would not provide the necessary aerodynamic efficiencies at speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. Even at this early stage, it was obvious that the Caspita would not become a luxury-focused supercar. It was a machine created entirely around performance. From an engineering perspective, the Jiotto Caspita was one of the most advanced automobiles of the late 1980s. Dome used its experience from endurance racing to create a monocoque chassis made from aluminum and carbon fiber. Mitsubishi Rayon developed a special sandwich technology in which layers of aluminum were placed between carbon fiber reinforced plastic sheets and baked repeatedly inside an autoclave. The process was extremely time-consuming, with each chassis requiring almost 2 months to complete. The result, however, was a structure that was both incredibly light and exceptionally rigid. The first prototype weighed approximately 1,100 kilograms, an astonishing achievement considering the dimensions and technology involved. The body measured around 4.5 meters long, nearly 2 meters wide, and only a little over 1 meter tall. The car looked like a pure Le Mans prototype. It also featured a completely flat underbody and a massive rear diffuser to increase aerodynamic downforce. The Caspita even had an electronically controlled active rear wing, a feature that seemed almost futuristic at the end of the 1980s. Many of its technological ideas would later appear in cars such as the McLaren F1 or Ferrari F40, but the Caspita experimented with them years earlier. The most extraordinary element of the first Caspita, however, was its engine. Dome chose to use the Subaru Motori Moderni Type 1235 power unit, originally designed for Formula One. This was a naturally aspirated 3.5-liter flat 12 boxer engine. The legendary Carlo Citti and his company Motori Moderni developed the engine specifically for Subaru's Formula One ambitions. The flat 12 layout placed 12 cylinders horizontally opposite each other, similar to engines used in machines like the Ferrari 512BB or Porsche 917. Subaru intended to enter Formula One with the Colony team using this engine. On paper, the design had several advantages: a low center of gravity, smooth operation, and a unique sound. In reality, the engine proved to be heavy, large, and problematic. In road-going Caspita specification, the engine produced around 450 horsepower at over 10,000 revolutions per minute. Maximum torque was approximately 362 Newton-meters. Power was sent to the rear wheels through a 6-speed manual transmission supplied by Weissman. With a curb weight of about 1,100 kilograms, the Caspita was capable of accelerating from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in around 4.7 seconds and reaching a top speed of approximately 320 kilometers per hour. Today, these numbers may not sound unbelievable, but at the end of the 1980s, they placed the Caspita directly in Ferrari F40 territory. The Subaru Motori Moderni engine was both the project's greatest opportunity and its biggest problem. Subaru entered Formula One with huge ambitions, but reality quickly exposed the weaknesses of the program. The Type 1235 engine was simply too heavy, too wide, and too underpowered compared with rival Honda or Renault engines. The Colony Subaru cars barely qualified for races, and the entire Formula One effort became an embarrassment. Subaru rapidly abandoned the project, and with the end of the Formula One program came the end of engine supply for the Caspita as well. For Dome, this was a massive issue, because the entire car had been engineered around the flat 12 engine. Nevertheless, the company refused to give up. Hayashi and his team decided to redesign the car and search for a new engine even more extreme than the original. This decision led to the creation of the second version of the car, now known as the Jiotto Caspita Mark II. The second Caspita appeared in 1993 and was even crazier than the first. This time, behind the driver sat a Judd GV V10 engine, another power unit derived directly from Formula One. John Judd was one of the most respected racing engine builders of the era, and his engines powered both Formula One cars and Group C prototypes. The engine displaced 3.5 liters, featured 10 cylinders in a V configuration, and produced approximately 585 horsepower at more than 10,700 revolutions per minute. Maximum torque reached around 374 Newton-meters. The new engine was significantly lighter and more compact than the Subaru Boxer unit, improving both weight distribution and aerodynamics. The Caspita Mark II weighed around 1,240 kilograms and was claimed to accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3.4 seconds, before reaching a top speed of roughly 345 kilometers per hour. These figures placed it among the absolute elite of global supercars. In practice, the Caspita could compete with machines such as the McLaren F1, Jaguar XJ2 at 20, and Bugatti EB110. The suspension system of the Caspita resembled a race car more than a traditional road car. Dome implemented a pushrod suspension setup with double wishbones, similar to systems used in Formula One and Le Mans prototypes. The springs and dampers were mounted inside the bodywork, improving aerodynamics and reducing drag. Even more impressively, the suspension featured electronic ride height and stiffness adjustment. Drivers could alter the ground clearance depending on driving conditions. Normally, the Caspita rode with around 13 centimeters of clearance, but it could be lowered to as little as 7 centimeters. At the time, these were features rarely seen even in Ferrari or Lamborghini models. The brakes were supplied by Brembo, the wheels came from Ray's, and the tires were produced by Dunlop. Every detail was optimized for performance and stability at extremely high speeds. The Caspita also featured pneumatic lifting systems capable of raising the car during servicing, exactly like a racing prototype. Stylistically, the Caspita still looks astonishingly modern today. Its low body line, integrated rear wing, massive side intakes, and gull-wing doors made it appear more like a 21st century concept car than a product of the late 1980s. The first prototype was finished in a pale blue-gray color, while the second prototype wore a yellow-green shade and featured a slightly redesigned front end. The interior was equally futuristic for its time. It included digital displays, a minimalist dashboard, sporty Recaro seats, and a 2-spoke steering wheel. The car even had a diagnostic system monitoring functions such as the spoilers, suspension, and doors. Interestingly, the designers intentionally minimized luxury features. There were no cup holders, unnecessary decorations, or excessive comfort items. The Caspita was intended to be a road-going race car, not a luxurious grand tourer. Initially, the plans for the Caspita were extremely ambitious. Dome and Waghole intended to build around 30 units over several years. The car was aimed primarily at Japan and Europe, and would have carried an astronomical price tag. Depending on the source, estimates range from 30 million to even 100 million yen. These prices place the Caspita among the most expensive supercars in the world. For comparison, a Honda NSX cost only a fraction of that amount at the time. The Caspita was meant to be exclusive, extreme, and highly limited. Dome even considered entering the car at Le Mans in order to promote the Jiotto brand globally. There were reportedly preliminary agreements concerning homologation for the United Kingdom market as well. Everything appeared to be moving toward production. Unfortunately, the global economy was about to change dramatically. At the beginning of the 1990s, Japan's economic bubble collapsed. Real estate and asset values crashed, companies began cutting spending, and the luxury supercar market nearly disappeared overnight. Even established manufacturers struggled to sell their flagship models. In such an environment, an ultra-expensive supercar from an almost unknown brand stood little chance of survival. Dome also lost Subaru's support, while development costs continued to skyrocket. Producing the carbon composite chassis was extremely expensive, and maintaining a Formula One-derived engine in a road car was equally impractical. Technically, the Caspita was obsessively engineered to perfection, but economically it made almost no sense. In 1993, the project was officially canceled. Giotto Design survived for a few more years as a design studio, but the car never entered production. In many ways, the Caspita became a victim of its own ambition and the economic crisis surrounding it. In total, only 2 Jiotto Caspita prototypes were ever built. The first prototype, powered by the Subaru Flat 12 engine, is currently displayed at the Motor Car Museum of Japan in Komatsu. The second prototype, fitted with the Judd V10 engine, remains the property of Dome and is preserved in the company's museum collection in Maibara. Both cars still survive today and occasionally appear at exhibitions or special automotive events. Thanks to this, the Caspita has never been completely forgotten. For many enthusiasts of Japanese performance cars, it represents a kind of holy grail, a supercar that could have changed Japan's automotive history long before the arrival of machines like the Lexus LFA or Nissan GT-R R35. Today, placing a precise value on the Jiotto Caspita is nearly impossible, because the cars have never appeared at auction and remain museum-owned pieces. However, if one of the prototypes were ever offered for sale, its value would almost certainly be enormous. The Caspita possesses everything collectors desire: extreme rarity, a direct connection to Formula One history, groundbreaking technology, a fascinating backstory, and the status of a car that never entered production. It is entirely possible that one example could exceed tens of millions of dollars, especially the second prototype, equipped with the Judd V10. In the collector world, unique prototypes are often worth even more than production supercars. The Caspita also represents the spirit of Japan's technological madness during the bubble era and remains one of the most legendary unfinished automotive projects of the 1990s. The Jiotto Caspita remains one of the most extraordinary chapters in the history of Japanese automotive engineering. It was a car created without compromise, built by people who genuinely believed Japan could produce its own Ferrari F40 and McLaren F1 at the same time. Many of the solutions used in the Caspita were years ahead of their era. Active aerodynamics, a carbon-aluminum monocoque, push-rod suspension, electronically adjustable ride height, and the use of a Formula One engine in a road car. The car never achieved commercial success, but its historical significance is immense. The Caspita represents the moment when Japan truly believed it could challenge European supercar manufacturers on their own territory. And although the project ultimately failed, it remains to this day a symbol of ambition, courage, and the kind of automotive insanity that could only exist during an era when it seemed that absolutely anything was possible.